6 o'clock. After roll call, I am present. Mayor Pro Tem Clone. Present. Councilmember Swinson. Councilmember Moses. Present. Councilmember Scorpio. Present. Councilmember Present. I'm going to ask them to join by Pastor Rick Walters from the Blanco Methodist Church. Invocation.
Being an attitude of prayer. Almighty God, we're grateful for these public servants who spend their time making Blanco a better place to live and work. We're grateful for those who serve in the police department and all the city departments who so diligently make this a great town. And we ask your blessing on them, that you would just pour out your blessings on each one of them tonight and every day of their lives as they continue to serve the folks of Blanco and serve you. Bless this time as they gather together tonight to do the business of the city, and this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. We're going to pledge the American flag first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the second flag. One state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Pastor. All right. Announcements. Don't have the total update yet, but the library festival sure seemed to be a success. And I want to appreciate the chamber for that 19th annual event. Seemed to go pretty smoothly. And I know the reports I've got are that it was better than last year. Thank you. Public comments. First one up, train action. Not in the Blanco public safety.
Quarter of a mile down 7th Street past the middle school. Close. Thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly. I'm a father of 9. 6 of my kids are gone from the house. I still have 3 at home. Have 3 grandkids. My wife runs the pharmacy here in town. And between the two of us, probably the biggest issue that I've spoken about in this whole safety. I spent 22 years in federal law enforcement. I was an assistant city attorney for 5 years in Dallas. And I just want to express that it's an issue that I think is near and dear to all of you. I think you have varying perspectives on it, but I want to just convey that I think historically the discussion regarding the use of precious resources for things like law enforcement, potholes, and all the other issues that you deal with is a challenging topic and a challenging discussion. But I want to encourage you to view public safety and view the staffing of the police department from the perspective of making sure it gets a minimum and then horse trade above that. Once you've reached a minimum where the leader of the department, subject matter experts that understand what is necessary, when you hit that minimum, horse trade all day long about the potholes and the other issues that I drive over every day, and I hate them as much as everybody else. But when you're below the minimum, don't have a discussion where it gives the appearance that this infrastructure issue should somehow factor in to a minimum level of law enforcement. And my hope and thought is that you're treading in that direction. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it will attract good people to the department. It will convey to the department that you care about the professionalism of it. And at the end of the day, I will always advocate for 2 officers per shift. I will always advocate that there be a backup, a second officer in this town with this traffic, with the volume of people that come through here, that we fund, that they always have one person to stand with the one that's in the line of fire and facing the situation. and to have a backup. And when that one takes somebody off to the jail, we're not left alone. We still have somebody here for our businesses and for our people and folks on the road. So anyhow, thank you for your thoughtfulness on this issue. And thank you.
Thank you, Trey.
Yeah.
All right. Ryan, is okay, well, not a resident.
I'm Kenneth Welch. I'm not a resident of Blackfoot, but I am concerned about the community which I call home. I have 3 issues to address tonight. Number one, you're proposing to issue certificates of obligation to begin addressing the major infrastructure problems that Blackfoot faces. I fully support the funding those projects and will support the work that CMAC will propose tonight. CMAC is made up of all community volunteers, just like all the other city committees. They've produced an excellent work product. However, your proposal cuts out the voters. COs do not require the vote of the public and will result in higher property taxes. I oppose using COs. Put a bond issue on the ballot and let the people speak before raising their taxes. Number two, you are proposing to alter the guidelines that apply to Pecan Bottom Park. This has been an issue for over a year that I'm aware of. The park was intended to be maintained with native plants, and mowing on a regular basis will minimize the success of that effort. During the first month of Mayor Arnold's administration, the park was mowed. Attention was drawn to it and mowing was ceased. Now the proposal is to again begin mowing and using it for parking. The proposal also provides for installation of parking stalls along Second Street using some of the park land. I don't believe this proposal has been submitted to the Streetscape Committee, and I further believe that the park is within their scope. Streetscape, like all other city committees, is made up of all volunteers that are dedicated to supporting the city. Why would this proposal reach the city council without first going through Streetscape? Number three, as chair of the City Transportation Planning and Advisory Committee, I've requested to be included on the agenda to update the city council at the last 2 meetings. It's my intent to brief the council on the progress of and direction of TPAC is going regarding the considerations surrounding US 281. The resolution establishing TPAC requires updates to the city council. I've provided you a very abbreviated written update of TPAC's direction. However, this is second to water issues, most significant challenge that Blackfoot faces for the coming years. As I've stated, you have committees that are made up of volunteers. All members are trying to do what is best for the community. If you intend to go around the committees, cut them out of the process, or immediately resistance, you should consider alternative methods to get the work done. After making such a statement, I want to thank the members of the current and past city councils that have shown support by attending the meetings and seeking input on a one-on-one basis. Thank you for your consideration.
It's right, Mark.
Hello. I'm here to talk about the Pecan Bottom, number one, and one of the things I want to say is that it's all of it, and it has our heart, historically and our other way. What is holding the Pecan Bottom up is rock wall. We can't get the rock wall fixed, and we haven't used it, but it's not a parking lot. It shouldn't be used as parking, not once a month even. So I'm going to encourage y'all not to use this parking lot. And I couldn't understand if we were trying to put a parking area 22 feet around down Second Street. Once it's done, I think that just a parallel parking the way it is now on Second Street is fine. And the rest of it should be left as a park. Repairing and restoration, the KBG has been working with repairing and restoration on the Pensala Park. But I want to get to why we're being held up on the rock wall, because we're waiting for the U.S. Department of the flood study, U.S. Corps of Engineers, the flood study and the possible funding. And Bobby and I were on the phone one day with him and the U.S. With them, and we have qualified for 2 out of 4 of the qualifications. And so we're waiting and it could be a lot longer. So we put off going for grants of waiting for this, and that wasn't a good idea. So I think that he may call it a meeting and that we will go there, or mayor and whatever council people need to go with us, and we'll go and meet with them and find out what's going on with this flood study and funding. And if not, then we need to start looking at grants too and other things to get that rock wall done. I talked with Patrick today, and he said, wait and do all of it at one time, don't do the parking, because that bridge has to be done. It's in this, the bridge itself has to be redone, not just the rock wall. So all of this is a big deal, and we should, don't make a parking lot out of it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Valerie Shoemaker.
Hi, I'm Valerie Shoemaker. I guess I'm gonna sound like a broken record because I'm here to talk about the Pecan Bottom Park as well. And I think that what I envision for it, and I think a lot of people do, I don't think what it would benefit, but I guess I have the heart for children. I taught school for 32 years, and I always think of kids when I think of parks. And my husband and I are lucky enough to travel a lot around the country, and I've been to a lot of parks and areas where there's like natural, like just stumps in a circle, and watch kids, hop from stump to stump and little fairy houses. And I don't think we have to spend a lot of money to make the Pecan Bottom a nice area for our community and for the kids that play here. And we don't even have there's not a public park in the town. There's not a playground in this whole community that I know the churches have put in some, but if you're driving through with your grandchildren and you want to go for a place to play and a place to take them to have a picnic, you've got to go into the state park and pay the fee, which is nominal, but they don't even have a playground anymore. So I just would encourage you. And I also want to say, I know that there's been an anonymous donation to KBB for $2,200 explicitly for the Pecan Bottom Park. And that's a pretty big chunk of change when you're talking about just, stunts for kids to jump around on. And even if we put it in before the bridge and the wall and everything got repaired, if we did it simply like that, even if it was destroyed by the flood, it wouldn't be that much to replace. And it would also be movable when the trucks came in to start the repair. So that's my plea. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We haven't set up for the public hearing.
No.
Okay. So public hearing, yes, so it's been heard. Two proclamations this week. First one, Flag Day and Flag Week. I'll summarize the first one. The Second Continental Congress adopted the American flag on June 14, 1777. In 1949, the Congress designated June 14th every year as Flag Day. So as mayor, I am proclaiming the week of June 9th, 15th, 2024 in the city of Blanco as National Flag Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of our country by displaying our American flag at their homes and throughout the country. Second one, I'm actually going to read word for word because this is important. Proclamation honoring Blanco residents Cheryl Smith Rogers and James Hearn for their work to preserve and promote Texas wildlife habitats. Whereas Blanco resident and Texas master naturalist Cheryl Smith Rogers and husband James Hearn have transformed their 1 acre on 9th Street into a Texas native plant garden and adjoining former vacant lot into what they call a meadow. That's it. 1021 9th Street at 9th Greenlawn. Whereas Cheryl has blogged about their yard since 2008, that window on a Texas wildscape. She's worked especially hard to preserve and conserve natural native plant species in their neighborhood. And she has cataloged personally more than 1,360 species on her property. It's plants, animals, and organisms. Wow. Cheryl James welcomed Blanco students, garden clubs, and other groups to appreciate and learn about the habitat. Their property is certified as a Texas Wildscape Habitat Demonstration Site, a National Wildlife Federation Wildlife Habitat, the Monarch Wing Station, and North American Butterfly Association Butterfly Garden. They have dedicated so much of their lives to promoting conservation, education, and wise stewardship. And so I'm very proud to proclaim thanks and appreciation of the grateful city for their tireless work to preserve our native species and make Blanco more beautiful, neighborly, and environmentally responsible. Thank you. I know you're shy.
Yes.
Y'all really should go by and see it. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, we're gonna have 4 presentations. First, starting with the Blanco County Conservation Initiative.
My name is Bob Hyman, and I'm a board member on the Blanco Conservation Commission. I've got a problem tonight. About a block and a half from here, I got a call from Bill Sisters, our vice president, who was going to make this presentation, and he's stuck at a little water crossing in northeast Blanco County. And he said, Bob, what you do? And I said, well, okay. I don't have any of the presentation material. Apparently, you were given it. Okay, so we're going to do a PowerPoint that I've never seen before.
It's just one thing.
It's just a little
Okay, I think, yeah, the council members all should have a copy of it, yes. And it is, along with that, the best practices. Basically, BCCI, we're also legally known as BCCI, is a 501c3 nonprofit founded about a year and a half ago. And it is dedicated to conservation and preservation throughout Blanco County. And the way we're approaching it is through education and communication. The first thing we're doing is we're putting together something called best practices. We've held 4 community meetings at which we've gotten input from the people of Blanco County, property owners, the employers, the developers, anybody that is a stakeholder in Blanco County on their view of how we preserve and conserve the county. So we put this together, and it's going to be an evolving list that we're going to share with everybody and anybody to let them know how the people of Blanco County want to see the county proceed as far as conservation and preservation. We are education, not regulation. We're at that point now that we're about to come up with a website where the best practices will be available to the public on an ongoing basis. Best practices, by the way, are evolving. They'll always be changing as technology changes, as we learn, as our culture changes. Our attitudes towards preservation and conservation are going to change. And so these will be evolving over time, giving people an idea. We want developers to be able to say, okay, here's a list of what the companies sell here and build here in Blanco. We want people that live here to understand how to keep the lifestyle that we've got, that we all love. Like I said, I came here thinking I was gonna be sitting out there, and so that's actually all I got to say. We wanted to introduce ourselves to the city council and let you know that we exist and that we are looking for your input also. Because obviously Blanco is very important here in Blanco County. Kevin, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to ask, are there any questions?
Appreciate your time, and appreciate your passion.
Okay.
Didn't the county adopt something very similar to this?
At this point, it's just been put out through the county. There's nothing officially been accepted at this point. In the future, we're going to be asking for support from various individuals and organizations, whether or not a city can actually be a supporter of that, I don't know. We don't know from a legal standpoint.
I think it would be.
But as individuals, individual council members.
Good stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next presentation is from the CMAC committee. I believe we have Brandon. CMAC is the Capital Improvement Asset Management Advisory. Issues.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. The City Improvements and Asset Management Advisory Committee, or CMAC, was created in 2021. So when it became overly apparent that our infrastructure was severely outdated, most of which has not been updated in over 50 years. The CMAC committee is comprised of 6 voluntary members of our community, most of which have extensive experience solving the kinds of problems that our committee is put together solving. I'm not one of those. CMAC is a resource to help provide guidance and expertise to about the city's infrastructure needs. This is a pie chart. Most important on here, basically what CMAC provides is continuity of analysis and data over time as the council changes. So as new members come on board, the data still stays the same. So it's not trying to redo a 3-year project at a time. One of the biggest problems that we have is that our water lines are directly below our roads. As most of you know, roads fail from the bottom up, not the top down. Mainly the potholes are created because what's below and sometimes what's not below. The roads such as water leaks or not enough things. So on this next page, it'll show the roads ratings. So we went around and rated all the roads. The main reason for that was so that we could prioritize projects moving forward. And so yes, we drove every street and graded them depending upon how poor it is. You can go to the next slide there. And you all have copies of all this, right?
Yes.
The next one is just an example of kind of road conditions and why roads fail. They fail primarily because the base below them fails. On this next slide, it's going to be a picture of all the water lines. So we know where the majority of all the water lines are, but the biggest problem is that they are underneath the roads. So even when something is wrong, it's really hard to get them fixed. Part of the next project is going to be moving the water lines out from underneath the roads. The next slide on here is going to be the wastewater lines. So this one we've got to get a pretty good handle on, but these are pretty much all going to need to be slip lined or pipe bursted at some point. And then
How many of the manholes are bad?
we're going to that one next. The next one's going to be manholes. There we go. Okay, so we went through and we graded the majority of the manholes. They obviously need a lot of work, but the water and the sewer lines, or the water lines are going to need to be done first with the roads anyway. So eventually this will be taken care of, but that's going to be a farther down the road project. So in the beginning, we started collecting, assembling and organizing all the existing data regarding water and wastewater. It soon became very apparent that the data that the city had was either old, inconsistent, or didn't exist at all. So over the past few years, we compiled almost all the information that is needed to start putting a plan together to make real change. This includes GIS mapping for all the water and wastewater lines and rating the city roads. So this had to be the first step. With the data that we had, it just wasn't going to be useful, so we had to kind of start over. and allow us the opportunity to then put projects in kind of the sequential order depending upon the conditions that we were seeing. So now we're finally getting to the point that we can actually start to make real implementations of progress. Part of our work is also to help show different financial options such as certificates of obligations, bonds, grants, user fees, and impact fees to help make these projects reality. This next slide here is just a capital improvements project financing scenario. The real point that we wanted to get across here is this shows that it's doable to use CIPs and grants to raise about $45 million over 20 years without raising our long-term debt to AD ratio. The other options are obviously going to be bonds and more options being put in here. But the good news is there are some options that if we do it over time, as things fall off, we had to take on, and it's not too far out of the reach of possibilities. So we can all agree that our roads, water, and sewer systems need significant improvement. All three have been neglected for so many years that it's fallen at our feet to be the ones that actually solve the problem. The good news is we're getting close to accomplishing this goal to implement a long-term, financially sustainable improvement plan. We look forward to working with you as we move forward, fixing your city's infrastructure issues. Our committee is planning on making frequent updates to council, to our progress, and to our recommendations. OJ, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Because we have 3 new council members, we're looking for them to either reappoint, or if you have some other person who'd like to under the committee, you need to let us know. I think Councilman Cargill has already asked that Brandon be appointed. We're willing to do that, and then what we need from Councilmember Moore and Councilmember Mack. Either approve reappointment or suggest something.
Do y'all have any questions for Steve?
I guess on the reappointment, there's to be seats for the committee members, and they expire on an annual basis.
No, they expire to whoever appointed them's terms.
So when somebody leaves council, a new person comes on with their
Right, so when you appoint somebody, when your term ends, their term on the committee ends unless it's. So that's what we're asking. Take a look at that. Reappoint it.
I will say we've got a really good group. I am the least intelligent person in the room every time we meet, but we made a ton of progress in the past couple of years, and I'm really excited to see that.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Okay, moving on. This is exciting. We're swearing in new police officer, Kaylee Gassman. In front of the flags. That's good.
American flag or Texas?
Is she supposed to raise her hand?
Yes.
Okay, raise your hand. All right. Repeat after me. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, I, Kaylee Gassman, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of police officer of the state of Texas, and will do the best of my ability to preserve, protect, and defend the constitutional laws of the United States and of this state, so help me God. Fantastic. We're glad you're here. Tom, Streetscape Committee update, Dr. Greta Martin.
I'm not nearly as pretty. It's- I have the council's permission, I'll be speaking. My name, sir, Eric Burkhardt, I'm on the Streetscape. Thank you, council members. I'm going to be speaking about a quick update to our activities with the Streetscape Committee. This year's brought a lot of changes to the committee. We started off the year adding 2 new members, Bobby Mack and Mike Benson. And Bobby's moved on to greater and bigger things. But we're very grateful for the enthusiasm and the energy he brought to the committee. So we want to thank him for all your work with us. Since then, we've added 2 new members, Gary Clariger and Stephanie Wright. So the committee now consists of Chair Rita Martin, Moses Hawk, Mike Benzer, Gary Courier, Stephanie Wright, and myself. We have our advisor, Maria Nino, and we are waiting for some word from the city regarding designation of our liaison from the city council. So, in a nutshell, Streetscape is about the revitalization, the beautification, and the preservation of the designated Plainville historians. I'm sure everyone up here is somewhat familiar, some of you even more familiar with that. It envisions 4 phases to be implemented in 4 phases. First phase is from the 4-way stop at Pecan and 4th to Town Creek. The conceptual work for that has been completed by our architect, Sue-Ann Pemberton, Main Street Architect. She's been working with the city and Streetscape since 2011 when she wrote the original design guidelines for Streetscape. She's a member of our team. She's very invested in this community, and we're lucky to have her on board. We recently, yesterday, signed an updated letter of agreement to keep her on contract to move on, and she's beginning the conceptual work, which is phase 2, which is from Pecan, south side of 3rd to Eureka 1. So that's where we stand at the moment. Regarding the 4-way stop and Pecan, we are very grateful to the city for all the work that you're doing, negotiating with TxDOT to resolve that issue. That area falls within the purview of the Streetscape plan, so we are an interested party. I'll leave it at that. But we know that those negotiations are in capable hands, and appreciate all the effort to keep us updated on what's happening. Budget projection. We anticipate to complete the project, all 4 phases, including design, surveys, engineering, construction, possible project management. It's going to cost close to $1 million. And we are actively involved in fundraising at the moment. But our fundraising goals have a 2-pronged effort. We are very interested in community engagement and education, because at times we've lost control of the narrative. Over the years, people don't really understand what Streetscape is about. And the key word is preservation of this vital resource to this community. It's not about turning it into Hollywood. It's about keeping it Blanco. And that's something that's important to us. And that's why we strongly encourage community involvement. Our meetings are open to the public. We welcome volunteers. We've got a good sitting committee, and we have a great website with good conceptual artwork showing what our architect has put together. And so we're going to continue. Next week sometime we will be mailing out informational postcards to every residence in 78606. That's about 3,000 people or 3,000 households. And that is more about community engagement and education than it is fundraising. Of course, we do have to raise money, and I'll segue to the next comment here about marketing and events. We are going to be having events this year, and they're going to be here in the historic district. And we have some good people working, setting up these events. And so keep your ears and eyes open. We'll advertise them in the paper and welcome anyone who wants to learn more and maybe enjoy a night out to come in and enjoy our events that we're going to be planning. But you'll be hearing more about that in the future. Now, issues related to the city council. We have a very symbiotic relationship between the city, KBB, and Streetscape. We have the city goals, mutual goals, and we have a history of working together. That's something we are determined to continue and build on. The city council's got a tough agenda coming up, some tough decisions to make about difficult issues, from water, infrastructure, streets, budget, law enforcement issues. It's going to be a very eventful year, I'm sure. And there's no question these are the right people here to tackle the job. But we want to work beside you, bring our resources and enthusiasm and support for the community in any way that we can to support what you're doing. So with that, I will say goodbye. And thank you so much for your time. Unless you want to ask any questions. Anybody have any questions?
I'd like to make a comment.
Please.
And I appreciate being involved with Streetscape since last July. It took me a couple of months to fully understand the impact that this project could have. And I feel very strongly that, especially with us dealing with the bypass and the potential impact of the highway relief route being happening or not, I think it's critical, and I'm a strong believer that this project needs to move quickly. I would love to see constructions begin in 2025. I said that while when I was on the committee. I know we're working together to try to get to some budget-ready drawings or bid-ready drawings, so we put requests for proposals out for the actual construction. So I'm a streetscape supporter. I think it's important that it happens sooner rather than later. And I would like to stay involved as much as I can to understand which phases mean what. I know conceptually, the conceptual drawings show the north side of 3rd Street, including or the courthouse side. I think as the impact for downtown revitalization would be stronger if we could include north side of 3rd Street, the south side of 4th Street, and the west side. In that, I believe, in my opinion, we don't have as much work to do on the sidewalks as we do in that area, and the budgetary impact may just be a couple more inches of ladders. So I feel strongly that should be an important part of it, but I'm all in, and I think we should get started and moving yesterday.
Thanks, Bobby. Thanks, Max.
Thank you, sir. All right. Staff presentation, interim chief. Actors.
Or do you want to go for
This month we had an increase of assaults versus April. Our major crimes, the only major crimes we had an increase in was assaults. And the rest all went down. As far as the other crimes, they all went down, but our call volume went way up. April, we had 173 calls for service. For May, we had 239, which is really taxing on less officers.
What do you attribute that spike?
The less office.
You have more calls because of.
So. They're just working on the numbers. Don't have any questions.
I do, just one little clerical thing. Under the arrests, I know you have it broke down as individuals, adults, and juveniles. You got 0 arrests for the month of May, but listed under adults, it shows 3. We arrested 3 adults.
Well, because
Now, three-
individuals is just a title. I don't know why I think that's just a.
Well, generally, it shows, on the individuals, it shows how many total arrests you have, and then it has it broke down.
I
by
think
the
that's just a clerical error.
Okay, so do we have
We had
3 arrests? Okay. That's-
And they were all adult.
Okay. Difference between 0 and 2. Right. Just wanted to clarify
I think
that.
that's just a placeholder.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Moving on, we have the consent agenda. There was minutes from the 2 meetings, May 15th, May 30th. And I'll have a chance to review those. 14th was the last general meeting. And then 30th was a special. Have any correction conditions?
There's only one correction. I was trying to find it in here and I didn't highlight it. It was, under our last regular meeting where, it was the issue to do with the, police department incentive program. And I believe I was.
Old business number 1.
Old business number 1. I believe I was the one that made the motion for the incentive program, and as well as including Thornhill, even though it was mentioned. I believe I was the one that made the motion, and Chris Bobby had made the motion.
I know you make the motion to make it 5,000 for now.
I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. I thought I had made the motion. Maybe I didn't. Okay. It's not a big deal. I just wanted to clarify that.
Incorrect.
Other than that,
It was hard to hear the recording.
that's, I've noticed that.
I had
Okay,
trouble
Other than
hearing
that, everything
side.
looked great.
Okay, everybody else looks good? I'll, make that motion to pass the consent agenda
I submitted it.
as amended.
I'll make a motion with that.
I second that motion.
All in favor? Okay, thank you so much. Moving on, I've been asked by Mayor Pro Tem to bump up new business item number 4 up to the top because we have 2 guests here, county commissioners. Okay.
Yes, I was, in some discussions with, commissioners about a presentation they would like to get to start the process of moving, I'll defer to them to explain the reasons and how this came about the history, but, to move the EMS helipad from its current location. That's what we need. Say what it is. we're trying to do.
I'll explain why. This happened. So, it was last year, there was an incident where an individual was taken to the school property where the helicopter was at, awaiting the arrival of this person to get there. And in that time, while on the property, this person passes away. So that holds up everything. And the likelihood that that's gonna happen again is slim, but it could happen. And they had to basically stop their process for the day. They couldn't really move around. Plus, there's a new gymnasium going in, there's a new art center going in, there's more students on that property. And there's more traffic there. And so the school district has asked for us to
Hartford, not us, to remove it, but for that to be removed from their property. Tommy and I found out about it. We began working on it. There was a couple of sites that we had talked to the owners of those properties. And the one that has responded first and foremost and is Security State Bank. And where you see the green, and Tommy will get more into this, on the roadway there, that's actually privately owned. And so we have talked to those folks. So at this point, that's why the helipad needs to be moved. And I'll let Tommy explain what our process is going to be.
I want to thank y'all for having such a minute to explore this idea. It's what it is. It's an idea. And, Charles and I have been working on it now a little over a year, probably just scouting, mostly scouting the south end of the county before knowing that they wanted the pad moved. And with that said, we started looking around in different locations and we pretty much beat the bushes everywhere we could. We were looking at power lines and fields, you know, how many houses is around it and this and that. We had several locations, but none of them met up to what we're looking at right now. That's Security State Bank right there, 281's in front of it. If the folks that are familiar with Michael Avenue is running there beside Lowe's. This is a private road where you see the green lane. It runs all the way over to Stripes or whatever it's called now. And that's private, that's owned by a couple. And we started working, talking to the Security State Bank to see if the idea it would work. They were very interested in it. We decided to try to keep it to one corner of that field instead out in the middle. What I like about this location is it has the power lines are on the other side of 281. It's all the brush along the side of that green lane going in. We discussed that with Security State Bank and the owners of that. And the county would clean all of that brush out where you see it now. We would prune the oak trees up that are just south of that on the lane where you can see through it and open that whole area up in there. What we're trying to do is to pretty much match the pad that's already there. It's going to be a 40 by 40 pad if we can do this. A concrete pad, and then in front of it, we were going to do a hot mix or a cold mix parking spot in front of the pad. If you come down if EMS comes down the lane and turns into the property, this will give them a spot to park right outside of the rotor wash where they can unload and load into the helicopter. It's right next to EMS. It's just a real good location. But we've talked, and Charles reached out to the owners. They on the road. They're excited about maybe and this would be done with an agreement between the county and them for us to maintain that. I know it's in the city, but we would own up to maintain that area. Do a double seal coat on the road, build the road back, roll it in, get it all cut, get the ditches cut. We'll do a double seal coat going into that, and then we'll also have to do a culvert in the ditch line where we have a ramp to go across into the helicopter pad. So with that, talked to Security State Bank. They went back to their people and they discussed it and said that they would like to do a deal with the county. And it would be a deal where they would give us the right to use that property. And as long as we give each other a heads up, if the time comes where they need to utilize that for something else in the future, then they give us a certain time frame to find another location. Or if they decide EMS and start fighting, whoever decides not to use it any longer, then we can with a notification with the bank, then we can gradually back out of it. So it'd be an agreement with the owners of the lane, Security State Bank, and the county.
So what we're asking, what Charles and I are asking is, one thing for y'all to consider it, you know, that it's in the city. What we would like to do is build something like you see now, if you go by the school. It's something practical. It will be marked with, you know, like everything that's required. I can see a windsock or whatever they might need and possibly some lights. But we've got an outside nonprofit organization that is offering quite a bit of the money to go toward. It's money that has a time frame on it. So that's part of the reason we're here now, is we're trying to see if y'all are okay with it. Whatever y'all suggestions you might have, we can work this thing out where I can go back to them and say, hey, we're on, you know, they've agreed to it. And, so we can go ahead and they've got that money earmarked for this right now, but I've got to tell them pretty quick whether or not we're going to be able to do it.
What do you need from us?
I need your blessing. What I need is y'all to go, yeah, that'll work. I mean, it's private property. We've worked that out with them. All of it, I don't know if it requires, I don't know if y'all have an ordinance against something like that or whatever, but if you do or don't, I'd like to work with you on that. See whatever it might take to get this thing done so that we can go back to the school and say, look, y'all, I don't know if they have future plans to put a parking lot in there or what, but they would like that removed.
Warren, can you give an update on the requirements, what might be required?
And it might be a little different depending on what the commissioner said, but I'll just mention something real quick. I think it's a great idea. I think that area, the location's fine. I talked to Chief McBain, I talked to Jerry today. I don't think there's an issue with that. City's been wanting just to see the easement to make sure that they have access. And if that concrete pad is owned by the owner of Security State Bank, then a variance won't be needed because they'll have actual, they'll actually have right, they have abutted right of it. But that concrete pad is actually owned by someone other than that owner. So if it's owned by the county or someone else, then the city will just need to basically approve a variance to allow basically instead of legal access, an easement to be used instead of legal access. So it would be an easement access. So that's it. I mean, the city would be fine with it. It does have to meet fire code restrictions. It reflects a couple things. I can't speak to that, but other than that, I think it's a great idea.
Is there a downside we're not hearing, seeing?
Not from myself.
Okay.
Good. Let me ask you, sir, if I need to go back to Security Bank and talk to them and discuss whether they need to own that or whether we can own the slab on theirs with a written agreement for them to have it there, or to just change whether or not we do a variance or.
If they own the property, Security State Bank, then no variance needs to be granted by the city. If that is owned by the county or someone other than Security State Bank, then the council just needs to grant a variance, which I don't think there's a problem with.
For the slab itself.
The slab ownership, that ownership is ownership. We're talking about the act, whether it's legal access or not. If that's owned by Security State Bank, then you have legal access. If not, then you just have access, legal access.
Okay, so if I were to get the agreement from Security State Bank, it gives us the right to use that property all the way out to their property line is on the outside of that brush area. There's a little rock wall there. That's the end of their property line. And the couple owns the ditch and the road. So there'll be two separate agreements, but we'll make sure that both of them are okay with how it goes and how we go from one property to the other. So once we get that worked out and everything, I need to come back and show that to you, or just something we can go on and
Work with Warren.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully we can bring it back either in July or August for their approval, but I don't see a problem at all.
Okay. And do y'all feel this is something I might be able to ask if we can be on the agenda for the next meeting?
That's what I was gonna ask you, Warren, is on the agenda itself tonight, it says no action on it, so we can't.
Well, they still need to pay for it properly.
Exactly.
I mean,
But
it
I
sounds
just
like-
wanted to make sure this is more testing the temperature of the council.
This is testing, my understanding was this is testing the temperature of council.
Absolutely. Well, I can assure you that I have no quarrel with it. Great idea. The rest of the council.
And as time is of the essence with the funding, I would encourage us to get it done.
So by us meeting like this, am I on the agenda for next time?
Make sure. it has-
So they can.
Yes, here's social class.
And you'll make sure that, does that variance have to go through P and Z first or all that stuff? Or?
Usually does, we'll make it happen.
Okay.
Fast track.
Very tough, very much.
Commissioners, thank you so much for coming.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you, Don.
July 9th is our next regular meeting.
I'll be able to call those. When you contribute to it. They were working on it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Good work. I'm happy to see that road, these parts being paved. That's the road. So bad, it was a city road. New business, we're going back to item number 1 now, Warren Estevez is regarding the insurance chief.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, residents of Malenko, very happy to be here before you today, talk a little bit about Lieutenant, acting chief, interim chief, Thornhill. He's done a really good job late in March. Jerry took on and didn't complain, really worked hard to make sure that the town was safe. And yes, we lost some officers. I agree, there was some fortunate things that happened. But he worked 24-hour shifts, went to all the academies, went to places, really showed me at least that the leader and that he did take care of it. Obviously, I'm always you have to show me kind of person. For the last 10 weeks or so, he's really stepped up, done a great job. I couldn't be more happy to recommend to council that you make him chief. We did actually get 4 or 5 applications. I read them, I sent them to you. I think we kind of looked at it and wanted to make sure that we're doing the best thing in the community. I also want to say this. My recommendation to you for Thornhill is not that it's in time or it's because I think he's the best person. So I don't know if you want to discuss, I think I also, in this email to you, talked about the hiring range and kind of where we're at, but I do want to explain, to council, we can start one part, as far as the salary, but the idea is that I'll be slotting and the chief is right after the city administrator, so wherever we bring the, finance director up in that, we'll make sure that he's about $1,000 more. So, if you don't have questions of me, or we have questions of, hopefully become the new chief, I'm all ears.
Questions, comments?
I move that we make Jerry Thornhill chief.
Second. Awesome. Everybody raised to do. All in favor? Say aye. You got it, unanimous. I'm happy, proud to say Blanco's in very good hands. Chief Thornhill. Congratulations. Moving on, number 2, this is the Warren, the cost sharing agreement. City of Blanco, Bill Woman regarding the proposed convenience store gas station.
I want to put something on what the top. right out here, let's get it all these things.
So to put in context what we're looking, this is property that's just south of the Budget Barn. Anyone, folks that want to put a convenience store there. And there is no sewer line on that side, the highway. Talking about ways and to extend it up there for a while, because several properties that are using. But this guy is pushing it, and so Warren, I've tapped that pretty long.
Yeah, I'm gonna tap into a little more, but basically, so we have really project that we have before you go and take a look at your staff report. It's a gentleman by the name of Cliff Holman. He has a business called Neighbors Market, and it's really not a project that's important. It's really the idea of whether we want to have that person help us bring sewer. So Neighbors Market is going to be a concept of a gas station, convenience store, and maybe another area there. However, and that's on the 5 acres right below the Buggy Barn. However, we also have to, in the next 18 months to 24 months, also serve the property that's above the Buggy Barn, which is Carter Car Wash. Eventually, we'll have to also serve the sewer. So the idea is that you look at the $380,000 it would take to get the sewer line to this Neighbors Market, and you look at about the $550,000 it'll take to actually get it to Tiger Car Wash or Brewer, then
That's not on top of it.
that's on top of, because this is the line, essentially what the city will do is, we're gonna probably go all the way to the north end of the city to basically open up that whole area. But what this person has agreed to, what they want is they want assurances from the city that will build a sewer line within 18 months, and they'll actually contribute $95,000 to that effort as part of the cost sharing program. And so they're pretty much at the very tail end of being able to wait for us to make a decision. So the question before you is, if you think that we can provide a sewer within 18 months, and once you kind of participate in this cost sharing, then so staff's recommendation is that council directs back to finish a cost sharing agreement.
So that line that goes north there, there's two ways to look at it, the manhole west side and east side. And not that one standing. You've got Buggy Barn, and behind that, what, 20 residences that Dennis Moore owns
That
that,
give 20 residences from.
and he said he'd hook those up.
I've spoken to the director over at Gentleman Hills, who'd be interested. Also,
Circuit Mining Agreement one, too.
I haven't spoken to Miles Green, but I haven't talked to Gentleman Hills. Probably 3 or 4 people automatically that will want it.
And without this, with the laws, any of them over time could actually push it to the end.
Right, so the law really hasn't changed, but I think people have gotten more aggressive as annexation. So at some point, we're going to actually have to put in that sewer line. Question is, whether you want to deal with this now. So hopefully,
And then that would be, they're not going to pay for it.
yes, right. And then anybody that taps in to that, there's some kind of caution. See the other people do that.
Tim, you have something to add?
I'm just gonna say that if you approve this, then we would come back to you with a development agreement that you would have to look at and approve. So there would be it's just direction to move forward with the development agreement, then you would have to vote on the actual document. And so the details would be worked out at that point.
I have a question. What's the water situation? Well, going back up a minute, you mentioned that ideally we would have that sewer on all the way extend this.
Correct.
And I'm a fan of that. We need to supply service. What's the water situation on that side? And also extending that. Let's take this, extend water as well.
They have water. I think they do.
I know, I'm agreeing.
Well, it's on Timber Hills.
I don't know what Jim the Hill, but my own green has water. And I believe we have that water too, so.
I guess whatever, well, and that's kind of a pointed question is, if we take their $95,000 in cost sharing, if we agree to the $95,000 in cost sharing, my hope is that doesn't restrict us only to minimum work that we can build for the future, bigger pipe capacity or whatever that may take for future water. Anyways, we don't have water there. We're cutting a ditch in the ground. Seems like we can consider that water.
So let me mention this, and what I call you to do, council, is send the maps of water and sewer. We have way more,
It's on there. See that?
we have way more water than we have sewer. I can't explain why the history of that. But almost every place has water. I say almost, someone say, I don't, but almost every lot has water. There's about 110 lots. In this town that don't have sewer. So,
But I would also just, I'll finish my introduction there. Saying I hope the size of the sewer line for future growth.
yes.
We'll have to go to this.
We'll tie it into the bigger manhole, please.
Right, we're gonna want to type it bigger man. That's part of the reason why we're trying to type this up.
That'll be traverse the
You might be.
And we're not prohibited.
No,
We're agreed to only doing 300,000.
that's correct. That is just, the 380 is what it'll take to get it to this individual, property, but really, we're actually talking about cost sharing.
So this resolution doesn't spend any money, it just gets you down the next steps and you come back. Yes, sir.
I do.
I'm in favor of getting as many services as much part of town as possible. I guess I want to hear from CMAC, because I know we were, I know there was like questions with capacity of getting it aligned to the sewer plant, or I guess that question, and then if the timeline is feasible.
So HR Green, they're finishing up the capacity on the sewer system. The water line system, we haven't really looked at that at this point. We'd have to know the demand, and that's part of the overall program that we look for from HR Green is to tell us what the demand we can deliver with the existing system. And so we'll have to make a couple calls to HR Green and see what that thought process is, because you're right, it is a sizing of the line to determine capacity now. And as your point, Bobby, is that we've got the future to deal with too. And it's
There's a
cost
lot of
sharing.
raw land out there. that could be
Yeah,
developed in some
and
years.
so, but we have to make some assumption as to what the capacity may be. And again, it goes back to who's going to pay for that differential and the size line that you're gonna put in to deliver.
So the zoning on that stretch.
And the reason
All
we're
right.
ready to now is because we have an actual applicant that's willing to do cost sharing. And if that goes away, we're gonna have to do it anyway, and I might be up here a year from now, and now without $95,000. That's why.
So I'll touch
Mike,
base
sorry,
with
go
HR Green and see what we can figure out in terms of capacity on those. And that way it'll help warm out on whether or not 95 is a fair number.
Yeah, I guess my concern is similar to that, because I look at the footnote on here, it says that, you know, even this company recommends that a field survey and preliminary engineering designs are done to see if the options are feasible. And so as I look at that, I don't know how do we go into and try to negotiate something if we don't even know this is
Correct.
Correct. That's a correct statement.
Yeah, I mean, it feels very early to me.
And I wouldn't have brought this to you now, I wanted to bring this to you in a couple of months, but they were saying it would go away. They could get something, some idea from the city they wanted to do. They were gonna go.
So pending feasibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just want, an action that says continue or
Yeah.
just give you?
Well, we want an action that. Staff recommends that council direct staff to finish a cost sharing agreement with neighbors market.
Finish the next. Okay, anybody want to make a motion that we continue to talk with the market?
I'll make a motion to direct staff to finish a cost sharing agreement with
There's a second.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? That's opposed? Two opposed?
I was in favor, sorry.
Okay,
I didn't hear you say it, brother.
4 in favor, 1 opposed.
the.
Thank you very much. Next, item number 3. Conrad Park. So last month, the chamber. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
I just wanted, before we get into the discussion, I wanted to recuse myself from this item because of the potential conflict of interest. I own a business that owns property next door.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say the same thing based on this, how this ordinance is written, with the rock wall would impact property that we own.
Okay. So the remaining folks can discuss. Thank you so much. Okay, so you remember last month, the Libby came from the chamber and asked if we could give them permission to park down there at Pecan Bottom, as they've done every year, since last year, for the last 19 years. And we were all eventually and were approved that. Of course, there was the usual pushback on that, and it's understandable because there is no real clear cut definition. City wants there. There was a resolution 2 years ago where it was a designated park, which is great, but it doesn't define what that means. Also, we heard from Ms. Martin, and we know this to be true, that the rock wall is very important. We pursued grants for that. That project, a resident engineers report on that. They say every tree within 15 feet of the rock wall is going to be cut down. Some hope they can save. There's some big old, I don't know, pecan trees down. But that's going to be a huge project with a lot of heavy equipment. A lot of impact down there. So doing anything permanent before then doesn't make sense. The idea being, and the park is not in the historic district. It's not under the purview of streetscape. They should definitely be involved, but it needs to be integrated into that. Streetscape stops at the rock wall. And I know their plan is to fix up the sidewalk behind the rock wall, right? Yeah, because all those buildings are there face to back, and I already talked to like. Yeah, Liz, yeah, they have a little pavilion back there. She wants a little jazz bar back there facing the back. So once that rock wall and the sidewalk's done, it's going to look very different. And see that that's the time then that we could do something at the time permanent. Between now and then, there's no bench or sapling will survive probably that rock. So my proposal is that we always preserve that riparian area. What's the exact distance of that? 20 feet? 10 feet. But preserve that, and it seems preserved across the street. Preserve that. And then in the middle of it, have it as the woman spoke earlier, have it benefit for children can use it. Have something where moms can sit, have a cup of coffee, while the kids play. People can play with their kids while they're doing their laundry, and have a place that the community can be proud of. And then on the Second Street side, there's one row with the grass pavers the grass goes through, potential parking there. That's my, I've talked to a lot of people for a lot of years. That seems to be the consensus. I'm not trying to ramrod anything. I'm just trying to start a conversation here. But I think we as a council should define what we mean by park and set the parameters on that to avoid potential ongoing conflict. Like it's been for the last couple of years. That's where I'm at.
Mr. Tuggy, are you pretty familiar with the standing ordinance on that piece of property already?
Yes.
In place, all right,
On the nature park ordinance,
correct.
it uses the term nature park.
Correct.
That was the term.
Maybe I'm not as versed on that one. I haven't had much time to look into it, so I got a few questions. Does that standing ordinance that's in place now, does it not permit any mowing? Is it specifically stated in that?
It doesn't,
No, sir. In fact, I was present when that ordinance was passed. It's an ordinance, but it left undefined what nature, as the mayor points out, it left undefined what a quote nature park would be. And I think, to be honest, my observation was among council that evening, there's a lot of different concepts of what a nature park is. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, that does help. I just wanted to make sure there was a specific rule.
No,
It said what about would be mowed. Because I was kind of getting that idea from what I've been told that
Well, I think there was a lot of different ideas about that very point, but everybody settled, well, we want to be a nature park.
I appreciate you.
To be developed at that point.
And that's my problem, because for some people, I mean, just put a bale of chain and don't mow it.
Don't
Let the
touch it.
chickens breed.
And that's, you know, and nature park, I've heard a lot of people say they want to use it for children. And I like that idea. I've got a young niece that has nowhere to go in this town and go play. I can tell you the way it was before it was mowed this last weekend, I wouldn't take a child to. I've had a lot of people say they'd like to change the name to Chitter Park if we're gonna leave it the way it is. So I don't know. I'm not seeing anything here that I definitely disagree with. I hate to say it to all the people that say the grass shouldn't be mowed down there. It can kill it. All that I saw is the last few times that it got mowed when my brother was attacked after mowing it essentially online. The grass came back stronger and better than it ever was before, but that was just my personal observation. I don't see any problem with mowing the place and keeping it at least kept and to where children in the community can use it. I also, like you said, don't see any reason to put anything too permanent in place before the whole project is completed. I'm tired of driving by the place and seeing it overgrown. I'm tired of the mosquito and the chicken problem that it creates. And I'm tired of our children in this community or whoever else wants to go down there to use it, not being able to safely use it because you might get snake very well down there. So, I'm sure there's some unsupporters of the parking area along the 2nd Street. I could see maybe some arguments on that, but the way I look at it is parallel parking really isn't very good on that. To safely parallel park on that, you have to park in the street on the city right away, which parks as part of the city street with a traffic issue, or you've got to pull off onto a severely slanted area and park sideways. That's why I wouldn't see anything against putting a small vehicle depth parking row along 2nd. So I'd be willing to support what you brought forward there.
And it's vague enough. It's just a statement that set up with sell disputes. Move on down the road.
Okay.
Well, I know that in the deed, I read the deed from the Benzos to the city that it was supposed to be kept known, or it would revert, or the ownership would revert back to the Benzos.
Well, that,
And
that wants
the
to
owner
make
who
some
made
money.
it happen feels the same way.
And so, I mean, that's one thing. I also know that, one of the people that gave part of that land to the city, gave it to the city for a park and nothing else. Do we know what kind of machinery are gonna go down there right now? I walked around there this morning and I found huge routes where if any kind of large machinery had to go down there, they could easily go through just two areas. So you could keep the rest of it as a playground or a picnic area for children.
No, and as that the resident said, in the meantime, put stuff that might be too far.
I like that.
Yeah. And then when the time comes, have a neighborhood design competition.
This is where the working together becomes more important because we need to work with AD&D. We need to work with Joseph Rogers and James Byrne.
That's right.
And how to preserve that natural, because James and Cheryl could go down there and they could say, let's start with this area and work back. I would like us to take a step back and not let anything park on there right now until we develop a plan. A plan of that. I'd like to have a plan of action before we just start parking on there.
Mr. Cologne,
I've got, yeah, a couple of comments. First of all, I'm a strong supporter of it remaining a park. There's no doubt about that. In fact, I think we should engage a larger vision, perhaps. I mean, playground for kids is fantastic, and it should be that. But that could become a continually babbling brook when we have better water resources or we have better use of our treated effluent. That could be piped up there and have a babbling brook the entire time. And with commerce and restaurateurs and folks on the high side of the creek, on the back side of those buildings, whatever. And I'm truly not opposed to riparian zone and keeping it that way, but I also I personally want to avoid having that mandated in any kind of permanency in case we wanted it to be more open so that people could walk down by the babbling and not be knee deep in weeds. Yeah, but it could be a beautiful, in my opinion, a beautiful extension of Benzal Park all the way up to it.
and potentially extension of the square. I mean,
Correct, with pedestrian traffic on both sides, in the park side and on the square side. So I just don't want to paint it in a box that we feel like we have to keep coming back and changing when we have a better plan.
try to put some guidelines in place so that it settles the disputes until then.
I think some of the big concern from what I've sensed from the community is that it's not going to be a parking lot.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody is motivated by that. That's my comment.
So you can vote on the
I'm not, well, I'm ambivalent on it because I think perhaps we need at least a little bit of, I don't want to go have paralysis by analysis where we don't do anything until the rock wall is done. I like the idea of allaying some of the community's fears that we're going to take the park away. But too much of a plan, if there's a question on the 15 feet of parking is not enough, 20 is too much. We want that in ordinance tonight. Perhaps craft this in a broad ordinance.
Okay. Yeah, this was to get the ball rolling and start the conversation, and happy to table it for tonight as you all will engage.
I will say every constituent that contacted me wanted to keep it a park.
Yeah.
No parking in the park.
Yeah, because of course, the chamber, and there's a lot of folks there, they requested it. So, yeah, again, so if you would work with Warren and we can draft something that's maybe still a definitive statement, that's for interpretation, and bring it back next month. That work? Okay. Thank you all so much. And then, finally, this one, new business number 5. Chief. That makes it so easy, everyone, the acting or interim or lieutenant or whatever what, chief. Now, so I asked the chief, a while back, I said, how would the city do better for you? What request you have the city? These things he said, pushing home for a while, so.
For a while now, I've been pushing for 2 surveys we conduct sponsors for with our community. One of them is increased security lighting for street lighting. So me and the mayor talked briefly about this a couple of times. I'd like to conduct a survey between 4 and 10, and from Mesquite extended to the Main Street, that area, that service area, to increase security lighting or street lighting. It does a couple of things. Those are the darkest streets in our town right now, and we just don't have enough street lights over there. Due to the heavy brush and everything up and down Mesquite, Hackberry, those are probably higher crime rate areas. Minor crimes, but still crimes just the same. We want to increase the security and safety of the residents. So we'd like to do a survey with the community and working with Dark Skies community members. That way we ensure that the city is doing this in an adequate manner and putting in proper security lighting and not something that's going to affect Dark Skies. The second thing I talked with the mayor spoke with, and I've spoken with several people about this, is street signage. There are several streets or there are several areas in this community that's missing some signs, stop signs, yield signs, traffic signs, just basic signs. And so we want to do a survey of that too. And now this is just a survey we'll go through, but I'm citizens to help me. I have my officers currently on nights are currently marking all the areas that don't have signs. This also includes street name signs too, because if someone, God forbid, gets into an area they don't know and they call for 911, understand they're trying to describe some house. Whenever I first came here, our dispatchers were notorious for saying, "Oh, go 2 blocks down past Bobby Lee's house." Well, I don't know who Bobby Lee is. Yeah, so. Right, and unfortunately, not everybody's entitled to that knowledge. Those are the 2 surveys I'm going to take under. Of course, I want to work on this while I'm working to reach out to the police department.
What can we do to help with this project?
Actually, I was going to have asked for 1 council member to help me with this. Because I know I can't ask for all of you at the same time outside of here. So I'd like 1 council member to assist me with this, and I'd like to work with the plus the dozen.
Anybody want to volunteer?
Do you have a specific council member you'd like to work with? Awesome. Just making sure.
I'm just throwing it out there.
I'd be willing to, if nobody else has information to tell on it. I'd be willing to help you with that, sir.
Awesome. Okay. Really good. Can we do anything to help you get the community members?
Actually, I was going to talk to one guy about that, because I think he already had a few people picked out that said that they were interested in it.
We got to ask. Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Moving on, old business item number 1, Mr. Esco.
Mayor, council, so we talked about a little bit of the grants committee, and then we talked about before, I'll explain a little bit about how grants work. So there are larger grants and there are smaller grants. And smaller grants, a lot of people say, well, I want to do this, I want to do that. I've done to be honest, the hardest part of the grants, first of all, we have a great city secretary that does a lot of that, submitting that and doing it. The hardest part about the grants is, I think some people, that we had a meeting last night at the streetscape, and the conversation was the hardest part is to figure out what to qualify. And so I think that the grant committee will be great. It's my thought is we have different parts of the town, different types of activities, different things that people want. So, for example, you may have streetscape, ones that certain type of grant. And I know they said they would like to have an individual be on the name. And then the planning commission has another different idea what they want. And then different council members have different things that they want. So my vision of a grant committee would be maybe 4 or 5 people that have different interests from different parts of town. But the biggest issue is not necessarily helping us write the grant. The smaller ones are pretty easy, even though it's not easy to get them. It's up to be all of it applied. The smaller ones are harder to get, but they're easy to create. And then to also go through, I think the biggest thing that the committee is to look at. And so, for example, some of the things that stop this town from is things requirement for low to moderate income. And fortunately or unfortunately, but fortunately for the citizens here, they are not below the LMI, the low to moderate income threshold. But that makes it harder to get grants, and that's just a fact. So there's 2 focuses: the small grants, which individuals on this committee will help us write, and we'll basically write it for them and fill the applications generally easy. And then the larger ones, we usually use like for community management. Now they're a grant writer, but every time you go for a large grant, like the generator grant we just did the public hearing for, or any of the other grants we've had, we just got the PIF, that was actually through a different engineer. But whenever you do these things, we still have to do an RFQ. But Langford will help us with the larger grants. But where this grant committee will help is to help us decide what's even worth going for. Try this grant, try that. Then it takes an hour or 2, a couple hours to figure out whether we qualify. A lot of times we don't. So that's where I think it would be helpful to have a grant committee. And so my thought, I think there was someone on Streetscape, I think it was Erie that wanted to be part of it. Maybe mine's fuzzy. I think somebody else. I won't put him in the spot.
I'll nominate him.
Streetscape. And I've been working with a lady called Lacey, who's part owner of a hotel, and she's very involved in wanting to do some different things. And we've actually met with USDA. We've actually talked to Langford, so she's probably personally be interested in a few names like that. But that's kind of my thought is there probably be liaison, and there's a couple people that be interested. Be liaison on council, and then maybe 3 or 4 interested folks. That's fun.
I think it's a great idea. Continuity is really bad. There are so many grants out there. Why did you apply for this grant? Well, it was on, Weedy's 2 years ago. There's so many out there. There's a ton there. And to have somebody, looking at the projects and needs and goals over here, and looking what's out there. And,
And whether we qualify.
Yeah.
The hardest part is members, do you think you qualify?
And then there's just keeping a data bank so you can populate it's a good video.
So I think the next meeting, then we'll come up with the names.
So you want us to give you a thumbs up on this now, or is it
Yes, we can just, let's create the committee and then we'll come up with the names for
names and structure?
construction. Yes, sir.
Question? I'll set the.
How about when we instruct our city administrator to take actions for formation of grants?
All in favor? Excellent, thank you so much.
Thank you, Warren.
That, the, for now, we are 7:35, we can go into the executive.